There is a moment in every argument, a tiny flicker, where you can feel yourself slipping from wanting to understand to wanting to win. You feel it in your chest first, that tightening, that pressure to defend your position, even if you're not sure you believe it anymore. It's strange how quickly a discussion can turn into a battlefield. 1 second you're exchanging thoughts, the next you're fighting for the survival of your identity. That's the quiet truth behind the need to be right. It isn't about facts or logic, it's about the ego clawing to hold on to whatever keeps it intact. The ego is a fragile architect. It spends years building its sense of self out of experience, memory, and belief, and it guards those constructions like a territory it can't afford to lose. When someone challenges an idea you carry, it doesn't feel like they're disagreeing with you, it feels like they're reaching into your inner space and trying to rearrange the furniture. The ego reacts like a threatened animal. It throws up the walls, it sharpens its tone, it clings to certainty because certainty feels like safety. It's not that you need to be right, it's that being wrong feels like a personal collapse. Most people don't realize how early this instinct forms. As kids, being corrected feels humiliating. You're learning how to piece together a sense of self, and every mistake feels like evidence that you're failing at it. Nobody is born with the ability to separate "I was wrong" from "I am wrong." So the ego grows around those early wounds. It becomes convinced that admitting fault is dangerous. It believes that uncertainty is weakness. By the time you reach adulthood, the need to be right isn't a habit, it's a shield you depend on without knowing you're holding it. What makes this instinct so destructive is how quietly it distorts reality. When the ego is in charge, the truth becomes negotiable. You start bending facts to fit your self-image instead of bending your self-image to fit the truth. You misremember details, exaggerate, reinterpret, anything to avoid the sting of being wrong. People think lying is a choice, but sometimes the ego lies before you can stop it. Its goal isn't to deceive others, it's to protect the version of you it wants to preserve. And the tragic part is that the more you defend that version, the less honest you become with yourself. Then there are the relationships we lose to this instinct. The need to be right turns conversations into contests. Apologies turn into negotiations. Love becomes a scoreboard. Two people who once cared for each other start keeping mental files on who apologized last, who gave in first, who has more leverage. You don't even notice when you're doing it. The ego doesn't shout. It whispers things like, "If you give in, you'll look weak," or "If you apologize first, they'll think they were right about you," or the most poisonous one, "You have to stand your ground." And so you dig in. For what? A sense of control that doesn't actually exist. What hurts the most is the moment you realize you've kept a fight alive long after the point where you knew you were wrong. Everyone has felt this. You catch yourself mid-sentence and realize you're arguing out of habit, not conviction. A rational part of you wants to stop, but the ego won't let you. It tells you that backing down now would expose you. It convinces you that you've invested too much energy to surrender. It's absurd when you think about it. You're fighting to protect a version of yourself that isn't even real, a version that can't handle imperfection. You're bleeding for a ghost. Underneath it all is fear. That's the heart of the ego's last defense. The need to be right is never about righteousness, it's about the fear of being insignificant, unseen, dismissed, overpowered, forgotten. It's about the fear that admitting you were wrong means you'll lose respect, or love, or stability. The ego doesn't know the difference between being wrong and being rejected. So it chooses conflict over vulnerability. It chooses certainty over truth. It chooses protection over connection, even if the protection leaves you isolated. It's almost ironic. The ego thinks being right will make you stronger, but it actually weakens you. It keeps you rigid, brittle, closed off. It makes you miserable in conversations that were supposed to bring you closer to someone. It traps you in an exhausting loop of defensiveness that never leads to growth. People who can't be wrong never evolve. They simply calcify. They become prisoners to the identity their ego is trying to save. But there is something quieter, softer, that appears when you learn to loosen your grip. The moment you let go of the need to be right, something shifts. The world becomes less threatening. conversation becomes lighter. You start listening instead of waiting for your turn to respond. You stop treating disagreement as a personal attack. You realize that being wrong is part of being alive, and that admitting it doesn't shrink you, it frees you. It strips away the pressure to perform and lets you reconnect with your own humanity, which is messy and imperfect and constantly changing. Letting go doesn't mean you lose yourself. It means you stop confusing your identity with your ideas. It means you stop tying your worth to whether someone agrees with you. It means you start valuing truth over pride, connection over victory, understanding over dominance. And strangely, this doesn't make you weaker, it makes you more solid. A person who can admit fault is unshakable because they are not terrified of the cracks in their own armor. They don't need to defend every inch of themselves because they are not living in fear of collapse. The ego's last defense is the need to be right. It's the instinct that keeps people stuck in old patterns, old narratives, old versions of themselves that no longer reflect who they really are. But once you recognize that instinct for what it is, once you see how much fear hides inside it, you can choose something different. You can choose honesty over ego. You can choose growth over pride. You can choose peace over the exhausting illusion of control. Being right feels good for a moment. Being real lasts much longer.